Good evening, Belize, and welcome to XTV's news broadcast for Thursday, February 27, 2025. Making the headlines tonight, body of a missing Corozal man found with signs of torture and message to police. Was it the cartel? Appeal of dismissal of application to stay election comes up for case management Monday. Minister gives UEF the nod for national hair policy, and attorney advocates for eligible inmates to vote. We take our first break and return with the news in detail.
February flash up on the light far.
On February 19, a sitting magistrate became the victim of an assault by an accused who moved to hit her with an electric fan. Fortunately, a handful of police officers in the room moved quickly enough to restrain him. However, the incident points to a glaring security concern within the judicial system. Today, we asked the Attorney General if the matter will be addressed.
I had a meeting, a couple meetings last week with respect to with the current chief magistrate, the chief magistrate who's to assume the position, and as well with the magistrate in Punta Gorda who regretted and unfortunately had to go through that very traumatic experience. And so there are a number of issues which we identified and which we certainly moving forward will be addressing. So one of the things that coming out of that we pointed out, whole virtual hearing could actually be a very effective mechanism to mitigate and to deal with this. So it's not every defendant who needs to actually come to court physically, so you may have a defendant who is at the prison. So an adjournment could be taken in that respect. Similarly, a trial if the person so agrees, but we discussed a number of different ways in which we could address and mitigate and minimize incidents such as that. As you will appreciate, that is regrettable, it's unfortunate. That particular, there were a number of police officers in the court at the time, so I'm not quite sure what additionally could have been done, but I straight away say that it is regrettable, it's unfortunate, and I am commiserated with the magistrate for that. But as I said, we had a meeting. We have plans in terms of addressing issues relating to the layout and facilities in of the court, not only in Punta Gorda but holistically. So those are things which we will be moving on to address. Obviously, that is not something that can be addressed in 1 month, 2 months, but certainly it is something that will be rolled out and be addressed.
Oscar Sabido Puga, the chairman of the Elections and Boundaries Commission, today confirmed that they have not yet received any notice of application for judicial review from the Moses Shine Barrow UDP about the assignment of the color red for the ballot paper. However, he noted that they have heard the reports that this will happen given the discontent of the Barrow faction about the majority decision of the commission for the traditional red to be used by all 41 candidates, claiming to be UDPs. Sabido explained that coincidentally, one of the 2 opposition commissioners on the 5-member commission supports Barrow while the other supports Tracy Panton. The Panton supporting commissioner has voted with the other 3. Sabido explained that they have followed the law to decide this issue.
The process is one where we took a preliminary vote on 7 options, and the vote by majority was that we were going to implement the part of the regulations that speaks about joining both the color and the symbol for the purposes of differentiation between the 2 parties. But at the end of the day, we must come to a final conclusion on the matter based on the returns that come in on nomination. You have the nomination forms which are filled out, and then when we review that, then we have a final determination which we had in our meeting. Today is Thursday? Yeah. I think it was Tuesday. We had a final determination and another vote, and at that time, because of the fact that the 2 particular parties that are involved, if you want to call them parties, did not offer symbols, notwithstanding the fact that we had indicated that the symbol is necessary for the differentiation. They chose to come under the UDP party for the nomination application and chose not to use the symbol. So since the previous determination by the commission by vote was, well, you'll use the UDP traditional color red and the symbol, then it was their choice to abandon the symbol. So we didn't have any problem then to apply the color, and since they had applied under the UDP on the form, then clearly it was one party that we're dealing with, so we applied the red by vote, that is of the commission, majority vote, to all the 41 candidates.
What level of public interest was considered when the commission decided we'll leave it this way?
Totally. But we're dealing with the the issue of the contention between them, and it had to be resolved because we had to do it, because the law requires that after the nomination, the sample ballots have to be prepared with the symbols and the colors. So there was no other waiting. The election is coming up on the 12th of March, and the law requires that we submit a publication to the Gazette within 7 days of the election. So we had to do it, but every consideration was done in respect of that. But there was no leeway given by the two parties. They refused, and they understand that now their responsibility is to ensure that there's no confusion. But the issue of the names that goes on the ballots next to the color will guide. And for them, no, it's their thing. They have to work that out.
What's the implication of the legal threat with only 12 days ahead before the general election?
Well, as you know, there have been previous proceedings, and the courts have not, in effect, come down to any determination that would, in effect, prevent the elections from continuing. And so it's hardly likely that they would be able to, in a sense, bring any matter before the court so quickly and have a determination.
Now, Senior Counsel and Attorney General Anthony Sylvester Jr. himself has faced a political juggernaut in an election and lost. That political powerhouse was no other than former Prime Minister, Right Honorable Dean Barrow. We asked Sylvester Jr. today if he is at all disheartened by the unprecedented occurrence of two candidates for the upcoming general elections winning by default because their opponents from the Moses Shine Barrow camp did not show up for nomination. Sylvester was sure to point out first that the law contemplates this.
Firstly, you will appreciate that the law takes cognizance of the fact that you will have such eventualities where a person may have initially had the thought process to run, to contest election, and then it changed. No, I can say, as you indicated, I've been in the belly of the beast. My previous life, I contested election against no less than the then Prime Minister Dean Barrow, and I can tell you it is daunting. It is extremely overwhelming, and so one has to factor and weigh all of those things before even one sets out, and tries to aspire to do that. But I can say that it's a very difficult decision-making process, and I'm sure the gentlemen, they may have had their reasons why they did what they did, but suffice it to say, the fact that the law and the Constitution takes cognizance of the fact that you could have someone be elected without an election. It is therefore, it cannot be said therefore that there's something untoward, there's something illegal about that. It's just the nature of democracy.
In other news, two young men are reported to have drowned at the Belize River in the area of the Guanacaste National Park in Belmopan. Police were on the scene and extracted their bodies just a few moments ago. Our colleague LJ Wade from Plus TV in Belmopan was on the scene and was aggressed by the police, who, it appears, did not want to be recorded. However, they had not set up any crime scene tape to delimit any boundaries. According to the report from Wade, he was thrown into a police vehicle and an officer grabbed his phone, asking that the video be deleted. They then threatened they would sue him if the video was aired. We'll have more on this in tomorrow's newscast. In more news from the West, police today arrested and charged 22-year-old Jermaine Joseph Cruz, a Belizean construction worker of the Cayo district, for the murder of Santiago Chago Rajo. He was shot in the early morning hours of February 9 as he was called out by his sister-in-law, whose household had been the target of a robbery. The robbers had stolen the motorcycle of his brother, Thomas, whom they had subdued. Rajo was on the street side when the robbers were passing back and shot him. After the break, 11 Tahor members detained in Belize extradited to Guatemala. Stay tuned. Abraham Dinkle, a Canadian citizen who has served as the spokesperson for the Lev Tahor Jewish sect, is among a trio who were detained at the western border on Monday and deported to Guatemala on Tuesday. The sect, founded in 1988, has faced multiple allegations of abuse against children, including kidnapping, child marriage, and physical abuse. 2 of the 3 detained in Belize were wanted for multiple child abductions in Guatemala, hence the reason for their deportations. Their presence was reported to police after the driver of a shuttle service hired to transport them from an Airbnb in Belize District to the Cayo District became suspicious of a sack they were carrying. Police found nothing of interest in the sack, but their appearance and ability to speak fluent Spanish caused police to suspect they were part of the Jewish sect in Guatemala. Police also discovered among them an American member who was determined to be in the country illegally from Mexico via the PGIA using falsified documents. 23-year-old Mache Alter was subsequently charged with illegal entry. Canadian citizen 33-year-old Abraham Dinkle and U.S. citizen 24-year-old Chaim Malka were also charged with harboring Alter. The men were fined $1,000 in the San Ignacio Magistrates Court on Tuesday, which they paid. The men were handed over to Interpol and were extradited to Guatemala as they requested not to be deported back to their home countries. Police are also seeking another member of the sect, 38-year-old Yoel Malka of Israel. Malka is also being sought by Guatemalan police for questioning regarding the disappearance of 13 minors in that country. This week, the U.S. State Department, which is the U.S. government's foreign policy agency, announced that the existing Cuba-related visa restriction policy will be expanded. The policy targets what they deem as the forced labor linked to the Cuban labor export program. In a statement about the labor export program, the department states, quote, Cuba's labor export programs, which include the medical missions, enrich the Cuban regime and, in the case of Cuba's overseas medical missions, deprive ordinary Cubans of the medical care they desperately need in their home country. The United States is committed to countering forced labor practices around the globe, end quote. Current or former Cuban government officials, as well as other people, including foreign government officials, who are thought to oversee or be complicit in the Cuban labor export program, particularly Cuba's medical missions abroad, are covered by this expanded policy. The immediate relatives of such individuals are likewise covered by this provision. Under this policy, the department has already taken action to prohibit visas for a number of people, including Venezuelans. It is expected that this would impact the collaboration that exists with Belize, as many Cuban medical missions have been sent to our country. These have greatly assisted with our shortfalls. The newly relocated Dorothy Menzies Child Care Center was inaugurated on Wednesday. The center was previously in Belize City but has now been moved to Mayamopan, Belmopan. The new facilities, which are accessible to persons with disabilities, include an administration building, 2 dormitories, a laundry and storage area, office spaces, a computer resource room, activity areas, and a playground. The Prime Minister, Honorable John Briceño, spoke of the importance of such a facility and why the relocation was necessary.
Many of these kids that come here come from some really bad situations, and we need to set a place where they can feel loved, they can feel safe, and that we could try to in a way fix them, because many of them mentally they have been abused, sexually they've been physically abused, and so that by having a special center providing all the amenities, we're hoping that we can fix them in a sense. As what Kim Menzies mentioned, she has seen boys, young men and women, young professionals that have been at the Dorothy Menzies Center and who have managed to do something with their lives. We want to offer hope to these children. the center in Belize City got too small, and we felt that, well, they felt that we need to find somewhere bigger. This is only a portion of the land. It's 2.5 acres, so we have a lot more land for expansion, to be able then to provide probably a basketball court, volleyball court, things for the kids to be able to live a happy and productive childhood.
Kay Menzies, who is the daughter of Dorothy Menzies, spoke of her mother's passion for helping children who were brought to the center before her health kept her away.
The institution was always there. It is government owned, and my mother was asked to serve as the chair of the board, I want to say the early 90s, and jumped in with a dedication that was, you don't see very often. Her motivation was always the children. As I said earlier, her view was if you don't address the children of society and bring them up in the best way possible and take care of them, you have failed society, because we have no future to go to. And she took that very, very seriously up until health-wise she couldn't anymore. She never willingly left. She just simply couldn't serve anymore. But her passion always has been with the child care center, always has been with the children. And so I spent a lot of my years hearing stories around the dinner table and trying to help in any way we could. But it was Mom's passion, absolutely.
Could you go over a little bit some of those stories that you shared earlier?
Some of it was, and I'll tell, there are the horror stories. A lot of it is that folks may not realize that you're not dealing with orphans, you're dealing with children that come from very bad situations, broken homes, abuse, stories I won't say because there are kids probably watching the news tonight, but these children all come to the center as a temporary location until they can go somewhere else, either a foster home or to a family member who cares about them and can take care of them. It's handled very carefully. And in the course of that time, my mother has seen some really sad stories that she would come home and tell us about, the child that was afraid to speak, the child that didn't know how to use a toilet, a flush toilet, and this kind of thing. And anything you can imagine. The center has seen so much more and so much worse than that. So part of her passion was always to get these kids into homes where they could be loved and learn what love was.
And on Tuesday, the Protected Areas Conservation Trust Pact and the Association of Protected Areas Management Organizations, APAMO, signed a partnership agreement in Belmopan. The objective of this new agreement is to strengthen community-based organizations, CBOs. PACT will also provide $319,000 in funding to support APAMO. PACT Executive Director Abil Castaneda spoke more on the agreement and how it is expected to assist in strengthening conservation.
It really puts a good way forward in how together we are building the capacities of our community-based organizations that manage protected areas across the country. For quite some time now, we have been working on developing this framework, making sure that it is structured in a way that does two things. It provides the support that our CBOs need within the protected area systems in Belize, but also that it provides almost a platform for us to think about a longer-term partnership moving forward, because as was said in the signing event just a while ago, the CBOs are very critical in the protected area system framework, and the work that they do is built on passion. They're built on their love for community and their love for the environment, and so we are trying to find ways in which we can provide structure around how we support that and how we empower our community-based organizations moving forward. So today we are absolutely excited. We're signing a agreement that has a value of about $319,000, and that will go specifically into providing support through APAMO for CBOs in areas such as financial management, in areas such as training and capacity development, in areas such as community awareness and communication, and also in technical support overall in their work that they do in the protected area. So we are excited and we're happy that we have been able to get to this point with our partner APAMO, so that we can continue to move the sort of the buck forward in terms of the leadership that Belize has in the conservation world.
Jose Perez, the executive director of APAMO, said that the agreement is long overdue. Last year, the group had gone to the media to highlight the lack of financial support from the government. Perez explains how the smaller groups will benefit the most from the funding.
As you know, last year we actually had to go publicly and make a cry because we actually were going through major financial crisis. And we believe that that's the purpose of the National Trust Fund. Again, I've said this in the past and I want to reiterate it. People are of the notion that these NGOs are dependent on this National Trust Fund, and that's not so. In the past, the financing of core operations, if you want to call it so, was only 20%. It was relatively only recent that it was increased to 60%. But still, the 40% has to be mobilized by ourselves. In 2019, for an example, PAC invested about $10 million in partners, including APAMO. But with that funds, or those funds, we were able to leverage nearly the equal amount of those financing. We were able to mobilize over $9 million. And so that's a partnership that has existed ever since. APAMO is comprised of 17 members. We have 10 members who are considered grassroots local communities. These are the ones that this partnership will target. They are the weaker members of our family, and they are the ones who have weak capacities. The model that we implement is that whilst we improve the resource center, it's not a traditional secretariat with experts. These experts will support the smaller groups.
And with that, we have come to the end of our newscast. A repeat can be viewed on the station later tonight at 9 and again tomorrow at midday. Join us again tomorrow for another news broadcast. I am Drea Espinosa. Have a safe and enjoyable evening.